The Ngorongoro Conservation Area in northern Tanzania is home to more than 41,000 Maasai. Heirs to centuries of pastoralist involvement in the area, the Maasai have helped shape the present environment and have long coexisted successfully with the wildlife population. UNESCO has declared the NCA a World Heritage Site and a Man and Biosphere Reserve in recognition of the harmonious interaction between Maasai and biosphere. The Maasai and their livestock traditionally alternate between two types of environment. Highland pastures, where water supplies are generally available, are grazed during the dry season. During the rainy season, the lowland plains offer nutritional and valuable grasses. This pattern of transhumance is an efficient way of utilizing existing resources while respecting environmental constraints. It optimizes the use of available water and grass and minimizes land use pressure.
Pastoralism for us is a very important thing. First of all, because I think it is one of the things we are really good at. We have the skills, we have the will that we have always stayed to be pastoralists, even when there was a lot of odds involved and risks. And that it's from cattle that we have all other things built on. You know, our culture is almost really built on cattle ownership and sharing of the cattle, character build up. You know, that you are always really brought up to be one who has to take care of cattle, who has to depend on cattle. So in this way, I think cattle and pastoralism really focuses much on our cultural existence. You see, and I can simply imagine what it will be like if everybody had to give up, rearing cattle. There's a lot to miss, not only when it comes to food, but when it comes to the wider context of the culture.
Traditional Maasai land encompasses vast areas of Kenya and Tanzania. Over the years, state intervention has severely limited Maasai utilization and even access to their land. Wildlife reserves have been established and expanded throughout Maasai grazing lands, excluding all human habitation. The Maasai have already been driven out of the Amboseli, Maasai Mara, Nairobi, and Serengeti national parks. The Ngorongoro Conservation Area still allows human habitation, although subject to strict controls. Its multiple land use policy is considered outstanding. Local authorities, the NCAA, are charged with the responsibility of preserving and developing the natural resources, as well as safeguarding and promoting the interests of the Maasai. However, the system of multiple land use is being undermined, and the Maasai pattern of transhumance is breaking down as a result of severe restrictions imposed in the NCA. Under current conservation policies, the Maasai have experienced a further decrease of their territory, as several prime grazing areas have been closed for utilization.
There's this artificial kind of a conflict when you see that while at the same time we have more or less the same demands for water, for grazing land, for other resources, then it is possible for wildlife more than for us. Because what? You say you can't use the crater. It has to remain entirely for wildlife use. I mean, that is a difficulty. You say you can't use the highlands forest, and that should remain entirely for the use of wildlife. That's also a problem, because this is a very important place to us. So people are really kind of frustrated. You don't know what to do. And then The only places available which are not restricted is where you don't have water. And when you don't have water, you can imagine how hard it can be to use them. So it matters a lot that the restrictions are becoming so tight, and we hardly know what to do exactly.
Life in Maasai land is profoundly conditioned by the seasonal rains and droughts. During the dry season, people and livestock are forced to trek long distances in search of water points. As natural water sources dry up, access to water becomes critical. When the Maasai were forced out of the Serengeti National Park, most of them migrated to the NCA, where they were promised new water supplies in compensation for those which they had lost.
People said, for example, okay, we can't give up Serengeti because this is where you have enough water, this is where you have really good grazing lands, this is where you have everything. It's also a place we are very much used to. You don't have all these diseases you would otherwise have in the highlands. And I remember talking to one like Guanani. He told me that it was actually a war, a struggle for 7 years. And at the last point, he said to me that it was only maybe a matter of time before the authorities could use force, real force, to move them out. So they decided, well, I mean, we have to move because we can't fight back. We can't possibly, win this war. And so what the authorities did, and it was the colonial authorities, it was the British, then they said, okay, let's agree that you are moving out of Serengeti, but in the highlands we are going to give you all that you are going to miss.
Some water schemes, such as boreholes and dams, were established, but none have been adequately maintained. The dams are laden with silt, and the water banks so muddy that it is dangerous for cattle to approach the water.
A lot of promises have been made here and then by the authority that we are planning to restore these dams. We are planning to do something about the dams, and until now, nothing has happened. Even the small water schemes, they have simply been abandoned. No repair, no nothing.
Today, almost all water supply systems are closed down. As a result, vast grazing areas remained underutilized or have been abandoned altogether. But the NCAA has reached an agreement with the Maasai and the Danish organization Natural People's World, NPW, to implement an economic recovery program that includes the rehabilitation of old water schemes and the construction of new ones. Maasai cattle have historically shared grazing land with a large and stable number of wildlife, but during the last 3 decades, this balance has been destroyed. The number of wildebeest has grown from 300,000 to 1.3 million. The wildebeest calving period coincides with the very season when rains produce high-quality grasses in the lowland plains.
There's one big problem, and this is the disease called malignant catarrh fever. It is transferred from the wildebeest during the calving period to cattle. And as it stands now, there's no cure. You can't treat it.
The threat of contamination drives the Maasai away from their most valued pastures, restricting their cattle to the lower quality tall grasses of the highlands. The highland pastures have become infested with ticks, blood-sucking parasites carrying diseases fatal to cattle. As a result, the rate of livestock mortality has soared.
There is such an increase of ticks. It just became so bad. Cattle go out grazing, and when they return, you can see the ears. The whole body is simply covered with these red, small ticks. And it's the same ticks who transfer this ormilo. I think it is a bovine cerebrotheliosis. And this than never before. I think for 10 years now, since 1984, there has been a lot of cases where people lost cattle due to this disease.
Traditional Maasai methods of combating ticks relied on an effective combination of transhumantic movement and controlled grass burning.
All the Maasai refer to Ngorongoro as a land made through fire. It is actually through fire that we have created Ngorongoro. Burning was done for reduction of ticks. It has always also been kind of maintaining the openness of the grazing lands, and also for the new grass to grow.
Today, transhumantic movement is restricted and grass burning has been banned. The resulting bush encroachment, spread of unpalatable grasses, and proliferation of ticks all present severe problems for the Maasai. Dipping is a highly effective method of tick control. Cattle are bathed once a week in a tank that contains a mixture of water and acaricides that kill ticks. NPW has supported the development and implementation of several pilot projects designed to improve the condition of livestock. A number of cattle dips have been put into operation under Maasai management.
The project intended to facilitate a process by which problems get solved immediately, because it was running out of hand. Cattle were dying like hell. In the first place, it was actually the central government who supplied the dips with their acaricides. But then they came to a point where they thought it was too expensive maybe to maintain it. And so it was, in Ngorongoro at least, it was left for Ngorongoro to carry on. Because yes, NCA, it was actually their responsibility to do it. And then they didn't. So the dips just kind of really got into bad conditions. They were not used for a long time. So it just stopped completely. It was like, who do we go to to ask if anything can be done? Gradually, we moved now into a situation where, of course, we know that dipping can only continue if we want it to continue. That is, NPW can only be there for so many years. We discussed about how we're going to do it, and then we came up with an idea of, first of all, each dip has to have a committee to make sure that the day-to-day activities are carried out in a very smooth manner. So now we find it also very nice, because we know we will be able to continue dipping even after the project time runs out. We gradually succeeded very much to build up a process by which, first of all, everybody felt that it was their responsibility to do something about the dip because it is important. Secondly, that everybody had to be sure and actually assure others that they care for it. When it came to cleaning the dip, when it came to repairing the dip, then it was everybody's responsibility, and they accepted. They wanted to do it. They contributed their manpower, they contributed in kind also, you see. And people respect it. I've seen it, and it is actually working very smoothly. And in this way, I have no doubt, and it is true to say that the cattle losses have actually been reduced to a minimum. And I hope it continues. That, for example, you find more calves in the herds, you find healthier cows. It's very important that we have healthier cattle. We have the possibility that the calves can survive, and become, bigger animals. And in this way, then we have regenerated herds. We are very satisfied and very happy.
The livestock situation in the NCA is critical. There are areas where the number of livestock per capita has fallen far below the minimum needed for pastoralist survival. A growing number of Maasai, particularly children, are suffering from advanced malnutrition. The diminishing herds no longer provide sufficient food, and grain has become an increasingly important dietary supplement. The purchase of grain requires cash and forces the sale of livestock, thus aggravating the problem. Many Maasai have come to depend on small-scale cultivation. The NCA ban on cultivation was suspended in 1992 to avert mass starvation. It is expected to be reimposed any day. Traditionally, the Maasai have a social system of redistribution, ewoloto, assisting those pastoralists who fall into extreme poverty.
Ewoloto is mainly really something which has to do with giving necessary assistance to a certain family from a certain clan, from a certain place, so that they are able to survive as pastoralists. So, for example, somebody lost their cattle to cattle wrestling, or somebody lost all their cattle to disease. Then it becomes important because some people have enough cattle. They can contribute to this one family. So it's really providing them with something that keeps them to a level where they can subsist as pastoralists. That they don't have to go around begging or depending entirely on a certain family, because it's our people, it's our children, it's our family.
An essential element of the NPW Economic Recovery Program is a restocking process through which poor families will receive livestock adequate for their subsistence as pastoralists. This restocking process will be realized through the tradition of Ngalata Ewoloto.
As regards restocking, I think the Ngalata Ewoloto mechanism is the most effective. Because normally, for example, it is people realizing the need. It's a certain clan realizing the need. They know within the same clan, within the same family, that somebody needs so much than the other. It is them who know better, I think. We have a system in place which has already been effective. And if we use this system, it restores not only the fact that now families are restocked, but it restores the strength of these mechanisms, the feeling to share, the feeling to care, the feeling to provide. The best solution to the managemental problems in Ngorongoro is only one big thing, and I call it participation. That there is equal opportunities to all. That the Maasai have to feel that they are a part of Ngorongoro, not only from a pastoral point of view, but also from the conservation and management of wildlife. If NCAA or if the government is actually mindful to assure that we share equally in decision making, discussing matters, analyzing problems, implementing the decisions in the right way, then we could share even the hardships. It is possible to cooperate. It is possible to dialogue. It is possible to discuss and plan for the implementation of the projects. And this is again by involving the people who are actually the projects are meant for. You have to have a changed attitude. For example, the authorities have such an attitude towards the Maasai, and the Maasai have an attitude towards them. And it is like, we look at each other and think that they're bad guys, that they don't want to do anything, even when they know, when it is real, when it is visible, vivid, that we have such problems. I certainly don't want to be pessimistic. But should I fix my mind to a very beautiful future of Ngorongoro? I think the future is always there. It's just a matter of us, which means the Maasai and the authority, to realize that we have to work for this future. Because the future is not only important to us who live in Ngorongoro and the authorities, but it is also a matter of how much everybody, Tanzania is very proud of the success of Ngorongoro, and so will everybody around the world, you see. So it is a matter of us realizing the importance and putting all the efforts we can to securing, to make sure that we are going to have this future. That's what I believe.